Good morning. Today on Spotlight, diversity, equity, and inclusion in one of the most diverse cities and states in America. From the business world to social issues, what's the current status? What's at stake? And should you really care? We'll get insight into this major topic from Michelle SOURIE Robinson, President and CEO of the Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council, Margaret Trimmer, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at Delta Dental of Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana, and a preview of an upcoming TV special that will air on Channel 7 tomorrow from Action News anchors Carolyn Clifford, Dave Llewellyn, and Glenda Lewis. It's Sunday, March the 7th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight. Michelle SOURIE Robinson, thank you for joining us today on Spotlight and for kicking off our topic today on the show. I know that the Mmsdc dates back to 1977 and you're one of 23 chapters across the nation. But for that person that's not intimately involved, may not be in the business world, in a nutshell, what is the Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council?
In a nutshell, the MMSDC is all about the creation of wealth. We believe that by creating wealth in minority communities, we're able to help all communities. Chuck, this week we lost Vernon Jordan, an icon in both the business and civil rights world. And one of the things that he said when he went to head the Urban League was, if I can help Black communities, I can help all communities. Because once we build up any minority community, we build up all the communities that surround and undergird it. And that's really the work of the MMSDC. That's what we do day in and day out through our minority business enterprises that we certify. We are building wealth in communities. We do that in a couple of ways. As a 44-year-old organization, you remember back when we were the MMBDC, and the B stood for business development, right, Chuck?
I do. I remember up under Ron Hall and others.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. All of those great icons. Today, we are the Supplier Development Council because we've literally moved from creating businesses back then to creating now sustainable supplier partners for our corporate members and the government agencies that work with our MDEs. We offer these services through what we call 4 pillars. We certify. That's how most people know us, as the certifying organization. But we also develop both the corporate member organizations so that they have sound processes and are able to achieve results. And we develop minority businesses as well. And then we connect and we advocate. Through this, we build wealth by both entrepreneurship and employment.
Give us a picture of wealth disparity in Michigan and in this nation. Where do minorities rank?
When you start to look at wealth, I'll just talk about the Black community, for example. It's literally 10% of the median net worth of the average white family. Literally $117,000 or $171,000, I'm sorry, versus $17,000 in median net worth. That's a problem for all of us because it taxes many of our infrastructure and other systems. And our organization is literally created to close that wealth gap.
But I've also seen a figure of 5% in terms of contracts that are stagnant, and that hasn't really grown that much since 1960.
We drive about $36 billion in economic output. That has been verified by third parties in looking at the way that our businesses have been able to grow in Michigan. They create and sustain 205,000 jobs. Where we find there is a challenge, however, most of our work is with corporate members. And in Michigan, I have to say, we're very fortunate that we have such engaged corporate members. But when you look at the way the pie has grown, supplier diversity as we know it, which is basically looking at your procurement spend and ensuring that it's inclusive as a way to build economies and wealth. When you look at that, 5% was the gold standard 30 years ago, and that was only for Black businesses. What's now happened is we've increased that, and there are multiple other ethnicities included as minority businesses, but we've also now included gender and disability and LGBTQ.
So the pool has gotten bigger, and you got more people fighting for a piece of that pie.
It's exactly it. So that 5% that used to serve a single racial group now serves many groups all under that diversity umbrella. And that's what has to shift.
Okay, we need to slip a little quick pause for the cause in here. We'll come right back with some more questions. Stay with us. Some quick nuts and bolts. Who qualifies to be a certified minority supplier?
Absolutely. We have African American, Asian, Latino, and Native American are our target groups that we certify. They are required to meet three different standards of certification. The first, most people know, 51% ownership by a minority or a group of minorities. The second is a lot less known, and it's really being involved in the active day-to-day management of your organization, ensuring that all of the intricate details of running that business, all of that is done by an ethnic minority. Now, does that mean that as the owner that you have to hold that position? Absolutely not. We realize that some of our businesses and the owners want to actually work in other businesses, and some of them have grown to a size that they need to delegate that authority. So we allow that delegation. And though our MBEs have many diverse teams and leaders within their teams, there is one requirement in certification that that primary operator really leading that company be an ethnic minority. The final piece, Chuck, is all about governance and control. We want to ensure that that business is unencumbered by any one that might usurp the authority of the ethnic minority in charge.
Three words: equity, diversity, and inclusion. But usually when we hear it, it's related to social issues. Your concern is a little different. It's about making those three words apply to the business world, correct? So what do corporations get out of engaging themselves in this?
It's a great question. When we look at just the events of the last year, and so many beautiful statements were made by corporations, well-meaning corporations that were donating checks and writing checks to wonderful NGOs. But I have to say, I believe there is no greater sustainable impact to economic equity, diversity, and inclusion than the work that we do for minority supplier development. Because you see, these are the people that are undergirding communities and creating jobs. Minority business owners over-index in the jobs that are created. So what I would say is, for those that are saying, how can I help? What is it that I can do in my corporations? Start asking the question about your percent to total spend, because that is the way that you actually help minority businesses create jobs. And might I add another point? When you ask about the percent to total spend, Chuck, exclude only payroll and taxes. Sometimes we hear people saying, oh, I have 10% spend with minority businesses, but they're excluding half of the things that they buy. So what I would say is only exclude payroll and taxes and look at your real percent to total spend. I think you will find that you're probably in the 1% range. The goal is to get in the 5 to 7% range, and it is possible. Minority businesses simply want access to compete. And because our businesses know as a condition of their certification, that key leader must be an ethnic minority, they are more aligned with the vision and the goal of not only creating jobs, but ensuring that they have a pipeline of minority suppliers that they are engaging so that they have a 5% spend goal as well.
Ms. Robinson, with so much money potentially at stake here, do you encounter people and organizations that are fronts? They represent themselves as a quote unquote minority business, but they really aren't?
You know, we live in a free enterprise system, and we're really fortunate for that. But that means that we also have people that are always trying to find ways to make that system more lucrative for them. So yes, my short answer is yes. We want people to know that when you're certified by our council, we have gone through the pains to ensure that they are legitimately owned. They are run day to day by an ethnic minority who is actively engaged, working with customers, working with employees on a day to day basis, but they're also governed and allowed to really lead their business without any other interference. This is so critical, Chuck, because when you look over the last 50 years, the number of minority firms that are grossing more than $1 million a year has literally only grown to 2%.
Wow.
We've had a 1% increase in 50 years.
Right.
So we have to look at our certification standards and take them seriously for everyone.
Quick yes or no. I know you're originally from Oklahoma City, but are you ready now to call yourself a diehard Detroiter?
Oh, I'm already a diehard Detroiter.
Okay.
After you've been through one winter, I think you're in. Thank you so much for having me, Chuck.
Thank you.
So
It's an
much.
absolute pleasure. Keep up the good work, and we'll stay in touch with you.
Thank you.
All right. And coming up, we'll talk to another woman involved in the business world, Margaret Trimmer of Delta Dental. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, you are the sole sponsor, Delta Dental, for this special that's coming up on Monday on Channel 7, just tomorrow, The Hidden Bias of Good People. Why did Delta Dental want to become the sole sponsor? Because there are no commercials in this.
I know, it's pretty amazing that Channel 7 is bringing this to the community. Delta Dental is building healthy, smart, vibrant communities for all. It's that for all piece that we're paying special attention to this year and hopefully forevermore. Inclusion, diversity, equity, these are tough conversations. And, Delta Dental also believes in civility. So having tough conversations in civil ways is hugely, hugely important to us, hugely necessary in our communities in these really tough and challenging times.
But this is a comfortable fit in many ways for Delta Dental because you've been pushing this.
We are working diligently toward being a better, more inclusive, more responsive company. And our staff are actually leading us in that endeavor. We have a work group that calls itself IDEA, Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Advocacy. But I will also say, it's kind of a cute little slogan, but we mean it when we say Delta Dental cares what goes in your mouth as much as what comes out of it.
Sure. Well, you're going to be making a little more news this week, I understand. Tell us a little bit about it. You're partnering up with the Ford Fund, also with Care Mobile and Lightship Foundation. What's that all about?
Well, we also believe that if you're going to care about inclusion, you got to put some skin in the game, right? And skin often means capital, money. And we are investing in minority entrepreneurs. And this project is one of those examples of minority community investment. It's called Motor City Cares, and we are giving away a business, a mobile dental unit, a one-person mobile dental unit that will serve 50% low income for 2 years in return for this gift and build a business in Corktown and Mexican Town. And we're right now looking for qualified individuals who are licensed to practice dentistry in the state of Michigan, minority entrepreneurs who are in that dental space.
What do corporations overall, not just Delta Dental, what do corporations and what does this region get by engaging itself in diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Hopefully, Chuck, we learn. Listening and learning really enable growth. And if we're not capable of doing those two things, and they really do go together, I don't know how we bust through the barriers that have existed in our community, in our country, until and unless we do that. And, listening really does require both your mind and your spirit. You can't just shut your mouth and wait for your turn to talk. And I think as we watch The Hidden Bias of Good People, the ahas, the discomfort is really powerful, really important. And if you bring your spirit and your mind to the conversation that you are putting out on the airwaves this week, I'm incredibly hopeful.
Margaret Trimmer of Delta Dental, thank you so much for joining us today on Spotlight. And thank Delta Dental for being a leader in this community. And when we come back after this quick little break, I'll be talking to 3 of our Channel 7 anchors that are very much involved in this project that you'll be seeing just starting tomorrow, right here on Channel 7. this special that's coming up tomorrow, The Hidden Bias of Good People, Dr. Bryant Marks is going to be front and center in all of this. And this is a big thing for our station, 1 hour, commercial free, and then there's going to be a social media component. Let me start with Carolyn and Glenda. You had the opportunity to do an interview with Dr. Marks.
Lots going on in our country. We had a pretty divisive political season this past fall into January. Lots going on, civil unrest, the virus disproportionately hitting different groups. So lots going on in our country around race, ethnicity, and so forth. These discussions around race and gender and politics and disability and so forth, I think are very much needed in order for us to heal our nation following the last, not only few months, but probably the last year. I think that the young people are in a position where they have more access and exposure to men, women, different racial groups, different ages, and different roles. So they have more balanced exposure coming up today than we had. Well, I don't know how old, I don't want to date myself here, but those of us who are more seasoned in life may have only, when we think of police officers, we may think only men, or surgeons only men, or kindergarten teachers only female, but they're seeing more of a balance.
What are your takeaways from that interview?
Chuck, first of all, I was amazed listening to Dr. Marks. I think he really just is trying to make America think, whoever's listening to him. And, he takes his discussions all over America, city to city. He takes it into the halls of corporate America. I think he wants honest dialogue. We all have our inner biases. It depends on how you were raised, if you were raised with people who look like you, think like you. And I believe change only comes if you're willing to listen and to listen to other people who really don't look like you. And I think that's really his mission.
Sure, absolutely. Glenda, what about you? Takeaways. Carolyn's right. Change comes when you're willing to listen. Sometimes when we're in the workplace, people don't want to listen. I'm sure Dr. Marks encounters that. And did he talk a little bit about that, how he deals with that?
Well, he did. And, he was very passionate, which is something that you appreciate when you're going into what you would consider an uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes it's hard to talk about background and where you come from and what shapes your ideals. You don't even realize it. How you may have a preconceived notion, or you may lock your door or roll your window up outside a convenience store, or these are things that are just a part of who you are. And so he's bringing to the forefront the opportunity to say, wow, maybe I do see things from eyes that I could open a little bit more. And it's a conversation, of course, I'm proud that we're having as a station because we need to have it.
Right.
Because our entire job, career, passion is about people, their lives, their feelings, and what they experience.
What a lot of people at home probably don't know is that every single member of this station went through this training a little over a year ago for, 2 or 3 days, and it was indeed intense. Dave, in addition to the 1 hour TV special on Channel 7, there's also going to be an hour component on social media. Is that a good platform to be able to advance this discussion, which, as everyone has said, sometimes can be uncomfortable?
I think it is. And let me say, first of all, he's a professor at Morehouse College, in addition to all of his other speaking across the country and workshops and whatnot. I would like to be in the classroom of Dr. Marks. He is dynamic. He is entertaining in a good, informative kind of way. I'd love to be able to sit in his class on a daily basis. That being said, we have this opportunity because of this special on Channel 7, and then the 1 hour discussion that will follow on social media. And it's important, I think, because number one, you want to meet people where they are, and more in our world today, we've got cord cutters, right? We've got young people who maybe don't watch traditional newscasts. They're spending so much time on social media, and so it's important that we be where they are so they can be engaged and take part in this very, very important discussion.
Given the type of stories you've had to report on, you've had to cover sometimes personally or just broadcast that we've seen, particularly over this last year and a half, last couple of years, some of them very sensitive stories. is this the right time for our station and other stations to be having this kind of conversation? Carolyn?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a scary time in America. It's a scary time here in Michigan. When you think about everyone watching the George Floyd murder, when you think about the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, when you think about us doing stories this past week about kids talking about racism in the classroom, yes, we need to make our reach broader. We have such an impact on our community. What we report, how we report, what we show on the news is so vitally important. And that's why we need to have diversity in the conversation, diversity at Channel 7 when we're making decisions about what we're going to bring to our community. So yes, this is the right time. And I think we definitely can have an impact and change some mindsets and open people's minds up to just a broader thinking.
Glenda?
It's a critical time because young people were in a place where we weren't anymore. I really do feel like, all the events that have taken place, the unfortunate, hard, gut-wrenching events that we've seen transpire in the past 12 months are bringing them back to a place that we were working our way beyond. Race isn't that important to a niece of my age at almost 23 years old, but we're making it important again. It's like we're reburdening another generation with things that we're trying to come past. It just wasn't as important, and now we've re-engaged.
Become front and center again.
Yeah, a whole uncomfortable situation. So it's critical that we get back to this conversation.
Davy Lou, you get the final word.
I think it's an important conversation, as Glenda mentioned, over the past 12 months, really beyond that, important for our country, important for all of us to be engaged in this, to learn, to make sure our eyes are open and that we are listening to others, that we are watching, that we are learning and growing constantly as a people. I think it's critical.
Yeah, well, no question about it. We're all very different, but we can always talk and we can always learn from each other if we're willing to just open our minds and have those conversations, whether they're comfortable or uncomfortable. Thank you so much for joining me. Always good seeing you all, especially even though it's more virtual these days than it is in person, but we love you just the same. Thanks so much, and you guys stay safe.
All right, same to you, Chuck. Thank you for having us.
All right, my pleasure. And I'm Chuck Stokes. We'll be back next week with more newsmakers in the spotlight. Don't forget the special tomorrow evening on Channel 7. Have a good week.